Thank you for staying with us on BTV News in Context. Now we're getting into this conversation of the day today. Aerospray BW, an innovative organization, is redefining mental health care by integrating the power of art and creative expression into therapy. Now, from empowering individuals to process emotions through art podcast and through art to hosting a First Youth podcast and mental health that sparks open conversations about mental health, Aerospray BW is making waves in both advocacy and healing. Now we will discuss their impactful work, the challenges they face, and how this unique model is creating sustainable change in mental health treatment. So in studio, I'm joined by Mirza M Toufiq, philanthropist and founder of Aerospray BW, to explore this groundbreaking approach to mental health therapy, and that's transforming lives in the country. Toufiq, welcome to BTV News in Context.
Thank you, Komatsako. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Right. Now let's start to understand Aerospray, the background and the inspiration behind this particular organization that, of course, we're already saying it's making waves, meaning that you're making strides in that particular space. So what really is the inspiration behind creating the organization, and what is the focus really when it comes to mental health? I know we've already said a bit of something there, but we'd like to hear from you.
So how Aerospray kana therapy arisimula kalina. So how did I come up with Aerospray? So I have another organization. It's Aero comes from Aeronautical Engineering and Research Organization. So a few years ago, when I was going through personal trauma, I realized that what I could use as a coping mechanism was art. So at first it started off as just spray painting. So that's where the spray comes in. So it became Aerospray BW. And we would make artworks and it would go viral on TikTok and whatnot. Then we realized that, okay, so these artworks, people wanted, there's a market for it. So we would sell it, and then the money we would use, 100% of the proceeds of that funds would go to mental health awareness. We wouldn't take a cut from it. Then recently, a few months ago, one of my younger sisters, her name is Aisha, she said that, why don't you start a podcast? Because there is no youth podcast or mental health podcast in the country. And you should share the story with others. And also, there are not many people that are asking the questions. Like so mainstream media does not ask the questions that the youth want to ask. So why don't you ask those questions through your medium? And that's how the podcast part then came into play.
Right. Interesting indeed. Now let's talk also about how the sessions themselves work. How does one get to that space, and how does one start to feel like a participant and start to go through the healing process now?
So generally, let's take, for example, for yourself. If you want to speak about depression to your parents, you go to them, kana mama, kana papa, and then you'll be like, kana, I have mental issue, I have something that I'm going through, and I need help. So they will ask you, Hore, agere wena onale dijo molapeng. Ya no lelang. They'll say that straight up. So, right. And it's something that young people face more than, obviously you're an adult, so they wouldn't say it like that. But a young person, remember this is a youth thing, so most of the youth, that's the response they get. And then there's this saying, Hore, depression is a sickness for the white people. You know, as someone who's brown or what, as someone from a third world country, ask you, no, and now you have food and shelter, yeah, sharp, keep quiet. But it's something that affects the kids, you know. So that's why we have made this like a medium for them to express themselves. Art is a way to like, it's like a therapy thing, you know, it's called art therapy, so it's a therapy thing. On top of that, the podcast helps them to voice their concerns to people that are in charge. So we have had, you asked how the podcast works. So basically, we have had 4 episodes so far. So the first few episodes, we had an advocate and we had an artist, but there were people that I had actually schooled with in senior. Then after that, we started getting a few politicians. So we invited the politician, and then it was during elections, so they would give us, there was also issues of scheduling and whatnot, because we still have 2 more MPs they are female actually, that we are looking forward to having them. So we do face challenges, like sometimes the scheduling thing comes, but we just approach them. It's very simple. We approach them, we ask them. Some approach us, others we have to go to them. And basically after that, when they come, we are more popular on TikTok and Insta than on traditional Facebook. So we take comments, we listen to the youth. They tell us, Hore, ask this person 1, 2, 3. So we ask them 1, 2, 3 to them. So we are voicing, like we could say we are the voice of the youth.
Right. Now let's talk about the reach right there, right? Because it's a podcast, and of course you're already labeled the social media platforms that we find you in. So how has the reach been like? And in terms of raising awareness through the platforms, how has it been like? Has it been like reaching to multitudes out there? Has it been bringing healing to somebody who's not also actively or physically part of the podcast? How has it been like in terms of reach?
Yeah, so basically, not too long ago, we were at a conference. It was a youth-organized conference for mental health. And we had an amazing conversation with the permanent secretary. And we realized that it's not just the youth. Even though, yes, we are the first youth podcast, but it's not just the youth. Our reach it's for everyone that needs assistance, you see? And you might ask, okay, so the podcast, how does it, like, what are we doing that is creating the money? So basically, the artworks we sell, I already explained, we do sell the artworks to generate revenue. But also from the podcast, when we are having the podcast, it's a unique podcast, because at the end of the podcast, with the guest, we create an artwork. And then we both sign it, the guest and the host. And that artwork, at the end of the season, all of these artworks will be collected. And then they will be auctioned. And unlike some organizations, recently there was an organization that was exploiting Batsari Barona let's not go into that, but basically there are organizations that say, oh no, I sold this for 1,000 pula, but then we have this fees, that fees, so I'm taking 500 as commission. But ours, 100% of the revenue that you generate goes to mental. So at the end of the season, all of the artworks we created with our guests on the podcast will be auctioned, and 100% of that revenue then goes to mental health awareness. And we have organizations that we work with. So we don't give them money. We look into what they are doing, and then we provide them the resources. So that's how our funding is spread to the people that need them.
Right, inspiring and quite plausible, of course, the work that you're doing. Let's talk about testimonials. Do you have any testimonials that you have from your participants, from your audience, from those that are really your followers on social media and different platforms that we find you in? Do we have those testimonials, the testimonials where people say, you know, through this conversation, my life has been changed. I made a different turn from this discussion there and there?
Yeah, so basically, before even the podcast started, when at first it was just me alone making the videos and just spray painting, basically. And from that time, there were two girls from UB at the time who had messaged me. And this is how I even realized that there's a possibility of creating this. They were like, you know, this is very therapeutic. How about, you know, you sell us these paintings? That's how I realized that there's a market for this. So, and then after that, they were like, would you mind teaching us? And then after that, I said, okay, fine, let me make longer videos. Because at first it was just TikTok short videos. They're like, I'll make longer videos. And instead of paying me, you can just watch the videos. And then you can do it whenever you want, at your own time, you know, whenever you feel like, in the comfort of your house. So those two ladies were the first people that gave feedback. And then now, if you want to see feedback, you'll see the comment section. It's filled with people saying that this is better than drinking alcohol and getting a bad hobby that is going to, you know, ruin you physically. And that, yes, other people can take avenues like sports. It's also a good thing. But I feel like creativity is something that you should give a chance to when you're going through this, instead of destructive habits.
Right. Amazing. It's quite profound. So now let's talk about you getting to where you are right now. Yeah, I don't think it was a smooth sailing. Of course, I'd like to hear it from you. Are there any challenges that you had to go through? Speaking of a podcast, you were speaking of you using art and yourself having gone through what you were going through for you to have birthed something so big and so powerful. So what were those challenges that you had to overcome?
Yeah, so when it comes to challenges, remember that we're not the first to have a podcast per se, but we are the first youth and first mental health podcast. But, you know, there are individuals who are in their 40s and their late 30s that are hosting podcasts that do not ask the questions that the youth want to ask. So when we started ours, at first there were a few hate comments that would come. People would be like, oh no, and if you have, for example, a certain minister from a certain party, but then they think, oh, you're aligned with this so-and-so, you know, but they don't know behind the scenes we had approached XYZ parties and XYZ MPs. Only so-and-so decided to come. So people just see the outside. They don't know at the back. It's not like we are towards this person or that person. We are unbiased. We want to ask the questions to those people that are in charge, basically. So yeah, and that's why we are going to have the next two guests we are going to have are from two different parties as well. So that way you can see that we are not asking questions to just one side. We're asking questions to all sides. Even certain guests, there is someone that we actually look up to. He's an investigative journalist. He goes by the name Raymond. And you know, sometimes it's a scheduling thing also, because before he leaves the country, we're trying to give him an official invite so he can come through, and then he can come on the podcast and talk to us as well. So there are challenges like that where you have to make sure that the timings are aligning, that your guest, like even me coming here, you know, your producers had to talk to me and all of that. So the same thing we have to go through, but we're not a huge media house. So we do face challenges like that. And even the auction that we are going to have, we have already spoken to a few sponsors, but we need to still get a bigger sponsor that can help us host the auction in a way that, because remember, we are not trying to use the funds to pay for that that event. We don't want to do that. Yeah, if we wanted, we could have long done that. But the goal is to take 100% of that. Like if we make 100,000, we want that 100,000 to go to straight to mental health awareness. We don't want to take that 20,000 to organize that event and then we give the 80. No, we want the 100% of that to go. And remember, all the guests will be there. They will all be, so everyone that comes on the podcast at the end of the season, they're all invited also to be part of that mental health auction. So basically, it's not just a podcast. It's also like a non-profit, you could say. And no other podcast. Yeah, there are podcasts that have come before us that we also look up to. You know, I look forward to speaking to Mohobe. He's someone that is a businessman also. We are also looking forward to talking to Joey and Scar. So they have come before us, but they are, you know, they are businesses basically. But what we're trying to do is something different. What we're trying to do is something for the people basically. And that's why we have the organic reach, you could say. We don't market, by the way. We don't even, only recently we started a Facebook page also. We are not interested in marketing. We're just interested in making sure that the people's voices are heard and what the youth wants to ask, it's asked. Like we are a medium through which we will ask, we will take the message from them and deliver it to the right person.
Right. Now the issue of funding, I like the fact that you touched on it right there. How do you manage it? How do you balance output and input? The fact that your output is solely committed to those that you want to sponsor or those that you want to fund, the mental health institutions. And then the input, like you've already said, funding or sponsors. How do you get to manage that? How do you get to balance the two? I mean, you already said you're not a big media house. It means you still have personnel that you need to take care of. You need to pay this and that, the bills that you need to take care of. So how do you manage to balance these?
So the good thing is that we are okay. So the students that I schooled with, right. It turns out that luckily all of us, we were in different fields and we were very successful in the fields that we were in. Right. So that's why I said the first few guests that I had happened to be people that I schooled with back in senior. One of them is an advocate and another one was an accomplished artist. So she brought her skills and talents on the show herself. I didn't have to pay for that per se, you could say. Now, when it comes to the recording equipment, when I started 3 years ago, when it was just art without the podcast, it was just a cell phone. It started like that. We have camera gear, and now it's Aero Media. It's basically one of our subsidiaries that does the recording and the editing and all of that. So yeah, now we have professional gear, but it didn't start like that. So it was also another thing is the people that join in, they like the message. They like what we are doing. So they forgo some of their payments. Yeah, of course you have to take care of their transportation and XYZ, but most of the people that want to be part of it. Because you know, in December we were supposed to have the SADC conference, but it got postponed to February of next year, and we're going to have someone very prominent. So because of this whole thing that happened, you know, it's everyone that wanted to be part of it, they were like, nah, just a chance to be in the same room with that individual. That's the only reason they were even like, yeah, no, the sound guy said I'll do the sound, the editor said I'll do the editing, just to be in the presence of XYZ people that we interview sometimes. And also being friends with those individuals and having a good intention also helps get people, like volunteers basically. But you're right, we do have to pay for certain things. And we are trying to, in a way, look for sponsors. But, you know, once you get sponsors, then you are, in a way, you have to say some things that they want you to say. You know, even on your show, there are certain things that you can't say. There are certain things that you can say. There are certain things you can't critique. You know, I've been told multiple times by others. And you know, one thing you can remember we were doing this as a youth thing. I forgot to mention it in your earlier question. I'm coming back to it. Is because something that is good about your media house as well is that you have youth. You have young people as producers. You have people like TD. You have people like Lala in other shows that is presenting. So even at your mass media complex, there is youth that is, you know, and I like the change. And that's what we are trying to do. We don't have a media house, but we as the youth are trying to voice our concerns out there, you see.
Right. I think the spirit of volunteerism is what you emphasized right there. I think it's one of those things that young people in Botswana really need to look into for them to open up doorways for them and for their own future. Right. As we near the end of our conversation now, let's talk about art now. I'm really interested in that aspect of yourself, how it really helped you cross rivers right there. What is the impact, the special impact that it has in one's life, in one's soul or spirit, if you are that gifted, or maybe you don't even know that you are gifted or talented? How has it helped you cross through? How can it help someone cross through? Listening to music, for example, is something that releases a hormone that helps you to de-stress, right?
Yes, ma'am. So I don't know if you have seen one of the videos, probably not, but your producers have seen them, and it's not traditional art in the sense that you don't take oil, you don't take canvas and you don't paint with oil and whatnot. You use spray cans.
Yes.
And because it's spray art, it's more faster.
Yes.
And it's more enjoyable because even someone that has not done art with a paintbrush and whatnot, you just buy a few spray cans, you get a canvas, or you can get a paper or anything. It has to be a glossy paper. And then you just spray some patterns. And then you use stencils and whatnot. So it becomes easier for anyone to jump into it. And it's therapeutic in the sense that just the spraying aspect and then the peeling aspect, it's quite satisfying to say. So that's the part that is the therapeutic part. So it like in a way, it helps you relax, you know, like you said, music. So for some people, this is like especially if you do it in the bushes or like in the garden or something, where the only sound you hear is like birds chirping and some wind, and that's it. You just hear all of that, and then it's your spray painting. And then when you are done and you put it up, it's like, oh, I created this. The satisfaction of, you know, I'm not that bad. You know, you're like, you know, those people that might think, no. You can all see, art is something that is subjective, you know. Just because when you think, or no, that person who went to school and did it, no. Even you yourself, you don't need to go to school to do art. It's something that anyone can do. That's why we encourage people that before you try and get into destructive habits, how about you give this a shot, you know? And even if you don't want to do the art, you can just watch it. So, you know, it's ASMR videos if you go online. So it falls under that also. Most of our views, they come from ASMR because the sound of the cap opening and this, it's like it affects your psychology in the back of your mind, even though you are not paying attention, but it just feels calming. You know, some people listen to whale noises when you're sleeping. Yeah, in a way you could say it's like that also. The ones who just view it. And that's why we did long form podcasts, for the ones who just want to listen to stuff instead of, you know, interactively doing it. So there's that. So we gave them options. You can listen, you can watch. And, you know, something that I haven't talked about is that we also have an AI health bot that we are creating under a different organization of ours. And if you have mental health issues and you want to talk to someone, you can talk to our mental health bot. And it can speak to you in Botswana, it can speak to you in Kalanga. So yeah, it's going to go to market next year. But yeah, the beta version is out. So we even have that. So we have multiple options for people to try out. And remember, we don't take money from this. We lose money actually in this thing. So we're just doing it for the people that we grew up with, you know.
Right. Yeah. Now, the fact that I introduced that aspect of art is broad, like you've already said. So December, this time that we're in the festive holidays, people would go into excessive drinking, you know, excessive spending, and also passion killings. We've seen them taking place. So I'd like to give you this moment as we close our conversation for you to speak to someone who has to deal with mental health issues. Some people don't even know that they have mental health issues. So if we could bring them to that enlightenment and what really they can do, the route to take in such instances.
So, therapy. First things first, you need to first, it's about don't be delusional. If you want to speak about your mental health issues, don't be shy. You need to accept. First thing is acceptance, that okay, I have this problem. The next thing you need to do is talk to your confidant. You know, people say, I don't have friends. Yeah, we all don't have friends, my friend. There's no one that is saying, I can spend this many hours with you. That's true, but you have someone near you. Even, like, kind of one thing I tell you, even when I spoke to the PS, it was the first time I was speaking to her. And, you know, someone that prominent, even when I was speaking to an MP, it becomes very difficult at first. But you realize that once you start talking, we are human beings at the end of the day. Right. I have a very good friend of mine, her name is Penny, and she even told me that, you know, you should stop worrying about, you know, opening up, because you find the right person, you open up to them. You might not know that person can help you get in touch with even if they're not the right person, but they will lead you. If they don't do anything, that will still be a learning for you. You have learned, yeah, XYZ, those type of people I need to avoid. XYZ I need to approach. So first thing, accept, you have an issue. Next thing, you need to talk to someone about it. And don't just let it kill you on the inside, because that's the worst thing that can happen. Once you don't do anything, you get frustrated. You lash out, you will, first of all, if you're a student, your academics goes down, because mine did go down. And next thing you know, you get into bad habits. If you get into bad company, you get into bad habits. If you have a small fund you have saved, you're going to blow that fund. Once that fund is over, frustration gets in, and you start lashing out, beating people, getting into fights for no reason. Even your parent is calling you, and you start insulting them and stuff. So that's what happens. So first thing, accept and start seeking help immediately.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Mirza, for your time, and thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Quite profound.
My pleasure.
Right. That was a conversation that we're having with Mirza. Of course, we're speaking about Aerospray, BW, and what they're doing really in the space and in helping the mental health spectrum of things here in young people in Botswana.